Welcome to episode 72 of the Band Hive Podcast.
You're listening to the Band Hive Podcast, the #1 online resource for DIY bands to learn about the music business and touring. If you want to turn your band into a lean, mean touring machine, you're in the right place. Now, let's get this show on the road.
It is time for another episode of the Band Hive Podcast. My name is James Cross, and I'm here with Matt Hose of Alive in Barcelona. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing pretty well, James. How's everything over there on the east side?
That is good to hear, and I'm really excited today because I mentioned that G&L ASAT last week. I broke down and I bought it, and it's coming in today if UPS actually does their job and gets it here. More on that later. But in the meantime, I'm very excited because I learned something. This specific model actually does have Alnico pickups, so it sounds like a Tele rather than the usual ASATs, which have, I think, MFD pickups and sound more like an ASAT. So this one really is basically a Tele, as was the discussion last week, so I'm really stoked about that, and I can't wait to play it. Knock on wood, it gets here today. And I'm pretty stoked about that.
So for everybody that listened last week, you can now tell the lengths that James had to go to convince himself. He's literally making sure the pickup sounded exactly like the Tele that he wanted.
Yeah, pretty much. That was it. I watched the comparison like, the Tele and the ASAT sound pretty different. Like the ASAT's nice, but it doesn't have that Tele sound with the MFD pickups. And then I was just reading the description with a fine-toothed comb and saw, wait, Alnico pickups? ASATs usually have MFDs and Teles have Alnicos. Happy days! And I ordered it.
He broke down everybody.
I did. But I'm not going to cease all feeling.
You shouldn't. I think it's a good purchase. So that was a steal.
That was a terrible, terrible AFI pun.
I didn't even recognize it.
No, it's Leaving Song Part 2. The lyrics are, break down and cease all feeling.
That's right.
I can't sing. Apologies, folks.
Make sure you leave that in, Leland.
Yeah, 3 minutes into the episode and already got bad lyric puns. Anyway, I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm really looking forward to today's topic, which is close to my heart, because I love companies that go above and beyond with customer service. And I hate companies that have terrible customer service, who's rude and make typos and just don't care about their customers. And guess what? You can tell which company I'm going to buy from, even if it costs a little more. Ideally, it costs less, but usually a little more, and I'm okay with that because I would gladly pay for good service versus not being treated terribly. So let's have a scenario here. If merchant A offers a product for $20, but all sales are final, and merchant B has that same product for $25 with a 30-day satisfaction guarantee, and this is a product I haven't purchased before, so I don't know if I'm going to like it. I don't know really if it's going to suit my needs, aside from what I've read online. Who do you think I'm going to buy from? And in the big picture, which merchant do you think earns more money? What do you think, Matt?
I think it's always going to be the guy with the money-back guarantee, because you're in the business of satisfaction. And when you're working with a company that guarantees satisfaction, well, that's a servant's heart, essentially. That's starting with your customer and your consumer base in mind before, saying, oh, I can make more money if I have bad customer service. I can charge $20. All sales are final. I don't have to hire a support team to deal with support tickets. I don't have to actually get on, sign emails. I don't have to recoup damaged products. These are all things that hurt your business. So I would every single time say, the company or the business or the band that is willing to bite the bullet, eat the $7 cost in order to make sure that their fans keep coming back over and over and over again, they will always make more money in the long run.
Absolutely. And this is a very basic business principle called risk reversal. And essentially what that means is your customers, your fans, have zero risk buying something because they know that if it doesn't meet their expectations, they can get a full refund. So Amazon is an example of that. You can return almost anything for almost any reason at no cost if you buy it directly from Amazon, or even if it's fulfilled by Amazon. Now, I've learned a very good lesson there. If it's sold on the Amazon Marketplace, but it's not from Amazon or an FBA seller, I don't buy it because the refund policies for third-party sellers who aren't FBA is often terrible or a hassle. Plus, their shipping is always slower. Instead of FBA sellers where it's Amazon Prime and you get it in a couple days, the third-party sellers use the slowest shipping available. It takes like a week to get your stuff. Then it shows up, and if it's the wrong thing, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, well, send it back, and we'll give you a refund when we get it. I've had the situation that it takes them a week after they get the package back based on the tracking for them to actually say, oh, hey, we got this, here's a refund. Amazon, on the other hand, for products that they sell or are fulfilled by Amazon, will refund you as soon as it's scanned by UPS or wherever you drop it off. Who am I going to buy from? Amazon or an FBA seller every single time? And this is so important for any business, but especially for DIY artists because, man, there are so many artists I see who mess this up, even on the big level. And it's terrible. Like, everybody who's listening probably knows I'm an AFI fan, a big AFI fan.
No, we don't know that.
No, the pun a few minutes ago didn't cover that.
No. I don't think we've ever talked about AFI.
That's a good point. I don't think we have mentioned them on the podcast ever before.
Nope, not once.
Well, actually, fun fact, I think that was the first AFI pun I've made. I think you've made one with a fire inside, but I have not made an AFI pun yet. It took 72 episodes. This is like when it took me 49 episodes to reveal I'm straight edge, and then on episode 50, you threw me under the bus, so I had to say it again. So like the next 5 episodes are going to be all about AFI.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. Anyway, AFI's merch store is run by a third-party company. I believe it's Warner Merchandise. They're terrible. Their fans hate them. The stuff is frequently low quality. It takes forever. They ship everything separately and charge an arm and a leg for shipping. For their new singles that came out, I found the same exact singles, not a different edition or anything, 7-inch singles, with the record label, Rise Records, for $2 less per record, and half the cost of shipping. I literally sought out other places to buy because the official AFI store is so bad. And a lot of other people are doing that too. So with risk reversal, it's talking about having good customer service. Most bands don't have a published return policy on their online merch store, which in some states might even mean that either you're violating the law or that your de facto policy is 30 days money back. It all depends on the states, but there are states that have laws like that say if you don't publish a return policy, this is your return policy. By having a clearly advertised return policy, artists can sell more merchandise because fans won't worry about low quality or damaged merch. So for example, if I saw a really cool design on the AFI store that I wanted to buy, but I was worried about the quality, well, I would go buy it if there was a satisfaction guarantee. Because if it came in and was this super thin, terrible quality shirt, I could say, no, this sucks, I'm sending it back, I want a refund. But with all sales final, you're stuck with it. Now, obviously, any merchant is going to replace damaged items that arrived like that. But if it's just a low quality item, what can you do if there's a no returns policy? That's terrible. Now, from the perspective of the artist who's selling merchandise, refunds suck. But if you can sell multiples of what you would normally because people have that satisfaction guarantee and only a small percentage of people take you up on that refund, you're going to be earning more in the long run. Because this is essentially a marketing technique. Don't think of this as something that will cost you money and get you nothing. Think of this as part of your marketing budget. This will help you sell more. Now, we're strong advocates for being a go-giver. That means think of others first, and that will help you grow your business. If a fan buys a shirt from you and it doesn't fit because your sizing is off, they're not going to be happy. And if you say, tough luck, sorry, and you don't fix the problem, they're not really going to respect your band anymore. But if you're a go-giver and you send them the size shirt they need and throw in some bonuses to make up for it, or just let them keep the other shirt and say, give it to a friend, they are going to be ecstatic about that. Keep in mind that running a business is all about building long-term relationships, and that means keeping your fans happy. If you have to exchange a shirt, do it. A lot of bands have fairly consistent sizing on their merch. But for example, years ago, I bought an Airborne Toxic Event hoodie, and I bought it as a large. And that thing fits like a 2X. It is a tent on me. But guess what? Their merch store said all sales are final. I've never bought more merch from them. I still love the band. I love their music. But I have not bought a single piece of merch from that band in, I think it's about 8 years now. Because they wouldn't send me a hoodie of a different size.
Yeah, that's awful. I mean, your fans are literally your lifeblood. And being an artist and having fans is a symbiotic relationship. You know, you have to give them value, and in return, they will give you value. And when you're focused on the other person, you know, like things end up working a lot better. I remember years ago at Warped Tour, there was a young girl who purchased a shirt from me. Now, normally when we would go out to sell in the mornings, we would grab a certain number of shirts of each size and go until we were sold out of them. And this one girl, I can't remember if they were guys' shirts or unisex shirts or what, but she asked for a size and I gave it to her. And then a couple minutes later, she came back up to me and said, hey, like, turns out this size is a little bit too small for me. Can I get the next size up? And I didn't have any of that size left. Now, anybody who's ever been to Warped Tour or who has sold on Warped Tour, there's this thing called the floodgates. Now, the floodgates is what happens as soon as the gates to Warped Tour open. Anybody that's talking to people in line or selling merch, they all know that that is the time when the morning is essentially done, because nobody wants to talk to you or listen to your music because they want to get inside as quickly as possible. So this was about 10 minutes before the floodgates opened. It's my last 10 minutes to sell, and I didn't have any of this shirt. I had already made this transaction, and I could have just said, you know, like, oh, so sorry, all sales are final. You know, you should have ordered the right size. But no, instead, I chose to run back to my car, which was parked super far away, because you can never really park super close to a Warped Tour when you're in a city like Portland, which is where we were. And I ran all the way back there and I grabbed the shirt. And now by the time I got back, the gates were open. And she was like maybe 500 people down the line. And so I literally just ran all the way up to the very front. And I got up as high as I could and I said, who's the girl that needed the larger shirt? And she was actually with her dad. And her dad was so pumped. I mean, he was literally ecstatic. He was sitting there like pointing at me, screaming yes, because he was so happy that I ran back to my car. I sacrificed a little bit of selling time. And in turn, I made this girl feel like she was getting the value that she actually was putting into the purchase, to the sale. You know, I could have just, you know, been like, oh, later, I already got your money. But no, the point is I wanted to develop a relationship with this person that was based on trust, that was based on goodwill, that was based on faith. And honestly, like, I told her, like, I'm going to go get you this shirt. Now, I could have fallen short on my promise. I could have just not shown up. I could have been lying to her, but I told her what I was going to do and I did it. And then in the long term, I have gone out and done Warped Tour so many years after that, and people remember me. And personally, I would say that it's because I try to do everything with integrity when it comes to selling. I love good customer service at a merch table because that is where your fans learn who you are. When you're on stage, nobody's meeting you. You know, even at meet and greets, they feel forced and there's like an awkward tension and there's a pressure for artists to like make sure that they're spending a lot of time with these people that they've never met before. And at the merch table, it's different. At the merch table is like, you know, you can have good long conversations with people and you can actually get to know them. You know, like on our last tour, I got to meet people from all over the country who, you know, these guys had just gotten married and these guys had just moved to Texas. And it's little conversations like that and little pieces of human interaction. And it's making good on your word and actually being like a part of that relationship. It sounds weird to say, but that's what pushes your merch sales, being real.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I remember about Portland, if this was the expo that was right by the train line, was it that venue?
It could have been. This was a lot of years ago. This was 2012, I want to say.
Okay, so that was before my time. That might have been a different venue.
The first year that we did Portland, it was a different venue. It wasn't like the one smack dab in the middle of the city. It was like closer to the outskirts. But it was the year they didn't go to the fairgrounds. 2011 was the year they got banned from the fairgrounds because somebody brought like a trebuchet. I'm not kidding, dude. There were 2 venues that banned them. It was the Gorge, because this person literally took a trebuchet and they were catapulting flaming porta potties into the Gorge.
If I can find a video of that, it will be in the show notes at bandhive.rocks/72. And for my own sake, I hope I can find a video of that.
Yeah, no joke. But no, yeah, the year afterwards, it was one of those shows where as soon as the floodgates opened, it was just turbo chaos. I remember that being the only overcast day the entire tour. And it was so nice because Utah was super hot, then Denver was super hot, and then Vegas was super hot. And then we went to San Francisco and it was cool. And it was like, oh, the perfect break we needed halfway through the first week. And then the rest of the summer was like 100 degrees every day.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason I ask is what I remember from Portland, which was the same venue in 2014 and 2015, was that they didn't let the fans line up till like 9 o'clock. Whereas most venues let the fans line up whenever. Like they can get there at 5 in the morning if they want to. And, you know, the people who hit up the kids in line usually are out around 7, 7:30, maybe 8. We usually went out around 8, I think. But that gave us a good 3 hours. But then there were venues like Portland or Chicago. The amphitheater there didn't let anyone in till 10.
Tinley Park, yeah.
So we only had an hour to talk to people. Some venues do that. Anyway, that's all totally aside from the point. The point is you made that girl's day by getting that shirt to her. You made her dad's day. You might have a fan in her dad now. He might be like, oh yeah, that guy was so cool. Like, I like his band. You just made 2 fans right there. That's amazing.
Even more than that, the next time that I go back to Portland Warped Tour and they're there, they know that my word counts for something. And that's really what matters. You know, when Amazon gives a 30-day satisfaction guarantee or whatever, it's your word. It's their word that you're clinging to. And if they say like, hey, like, you know, your money back, your satisfaction guaranteed or your money back, like that's peace of mind. That's what they're selling you. And for me, yeah, that was my first time. I didn't have, you know, I'm not standing up there wearing a returns policy billboard while I'm selling T-shirts in line. If, you know how the Warped Tour lines are. You're loud. I mean, people bring megaphones sometimes. You know, it's just like if you're out there and you're making a spectacle of great customer service, like what does that say to the other people that are standing in line looking at you? The eyes of the world are on you. Like we're on the internet. These are roads, you know, essentially when you have an online store that's sitting on the internet somewhere, that's the same thing as you having a business on the street and you're standing outside and you're choosing what you advertise. Now, are you going to be the guy that's standing out there with a sign that says all sales are final? No. Why in the hell would you advertise that? That is literally nothing but a weakness. You don't advertise your downfalls. You advertise the things that you're great at. And the things that are downfalls, you cull the herd. You trim that fat and you get that as far away from you as possible. You know, years ago, I purchased a Dell DJ. You know, this is like when iPod and Dell, the DJ, were like the only 2 MP3 players. And I ordered this, and I believe actually my parents either got it for me for Christmas or my birthday. I can't remember. You know, I was like probably like 12 years old, and it arrived broken. And I was so upset because more than anything, I just wanted to load my music onto this and listen to it like my brothers. It was the cool thing. All the kids were starting to get MP3 players, and it was broken, and I was upset. I got online, and I sent an email to Dell because that's how all customer service support was done back then, was via email, not live chat. And I just said, hey, like, you know, this was ordered for me for a birthday present and it arrived broken. And, you know, what do I need to do? Now, I didn't hear back from Dell. At first, it kind of like, you know, as a little kid, I was sitting there checking my email every 5 seconds. But lo and behold, within 24 hours of when I sent that email, I had a brand new Dell DJ sitting on my front porch. And this is like before the days of like, you know, Amazon drop shipping and, you know, things like warehouses being built everywhere so that shipping costs are down. It's like, no, this is like, you know, these are brand new. These are MP3 players. These are all being manufactured in like 1 of 2 places in the country. So they had to overnight it, which probably meant a flight and probably meant a courier delivery service at the time that was not like, FedEx or UPS, because a lot of these large companies didn't even have contract deals with them yet. And so it's like, I had this yellow van pull up or whatever, but it was less than 24 hours later. I had a brand new one, and with literally just like a little thing that, a little instruction manual said like, oh, pop your broken one into this box, and this is already pre-stamped and sealed and ready to go, paid for, postage. You just put it back in your mailbox and everything is taken care of. And I was like, I was 12. And when it came time for me to buy a laptop, guess what I bought? I got a Dell Inspiron, B130 or whatever it was called back then. And then the next laptop that I bought was another Dell. And it wasn't because they were better. It wasn't because they were absolutely, like I could have got a PC, I could have gotten a Mac, and Macs were starting to become all the rage then too. And Dell doubled down on their customer service. They made the experience so perfect for me that I didn't even consider buying a different computer. It wasn't even about specs. It was about who they were as a company. I will never forget that.
Yeah, that is the kind of customer service that every successful business has. Now, I'm not saying that every business who has that customer service will be successful, but every successful business has that level of customer service. There's an important distinction there. So now, here's what artists who have online merch stores should do. Clearly advertise a 30-day satisfaction guarantee for your merch store. Now, maybe you want to do 14 days or 45 days. You can change it up, but have a reasonable amount of time and make it very obvious that you have this policy. Post it somewhere. Make it big. You don't have to post the whole thing, but say 30-day satisfaction guarantee, click here for details. And that's where you have the full text explaining all of this. Aw, Dargle.
Is he on the table?
No, he's just on the tiles there. Oh, there he is. Good buddy.
Just running around the back.
He's getting big.
Yeah, he's great.
That's awesome.
He likes to go out and scare my baby chicks.
Oh.
I'll tell you about it later. It's funny.
Yeah. All right. Obviously, any items that arrive damaged should be replaced instantly, no questions asked, using the fastest shipping method you reasonably can. So now, obviously, if it's a $5 set of buttons that someone purchased and it costs $20 to overnight it, that's probably not great. But don't send it with the slowest possible method. Like, do something that'll get there in like 2 to 3 days if they're within the country. 2 to 3 days is a reasonable shipping time, and that's what people usually expect right now. If it takes a week, that's too long. 2 to 3 days, tops, if it's domestic shipment. Then, for soft goods, which are your shirts, your hoodies, clothes, anything that's made out of fabric, accept returns and exchanges on all of that stuff, as long as it's in good, unwashed, and undamaged condition, with, of course, the caveat that if it was damaged during shipping, that's on you. But, if somebody went outside with the shirt on and was climbing a tree and they tore it, you don't have to accept a return for that. Though if you do, you'll make them really happy if they're honest about it. Sometimes people will hit you up and be like, hey, you know what? I damaged this. Can I get a break on another one? Do it. Send them another one at cost. Say yeah, you know what? Here's $10 off. It's usually 20, but we'll give it to you for 10 because that's what it costs us. Here you go. You just made a fan happy. Okay, you missed out on the profit from that sale, but you already have the profit from the sale where they tore their shirt climbing a tree. For any hard goods, except music, because we'll get to that. So, for example, buttons, pins, stickers, all that kind of stuff, accept returns on anything that's resellable. If it's a low value item, just let them keep it. That'll be cheaper than paying for the return shipping. So if somebody buys a button pack and one of the buttons is damaged, just say, oh, we're so sorry. Here's a full refund. You get to keep them. They'll be super happy. And if they want, they can rebuy it and get a set that's not damaged. Or they can say, well, you know what? There's 6 buttons and 5 of them aren't damaged. I'm happy with that. I'm going to keep it. Either way, you have done the right thing for that fan. For music, though, I would advocate do the industry standard. If it's new and unopened, then say, we'll take a return. But if it's been opened, you can't really necessarily resell that. With vinyl, it's a little easier. Not all vinyl comes sealed in the first place, but CDs are almost always wrapped. And if that's open, it's tough to resell, and you don't know that the person didn't just rip the CD. Now, with the days of Spotify, that might not matter so much, but it's still something to keep in mind.
I would also like to add the anecdote that if something is opened and it's returned and still in good usable condition, have everybody in the band sign it.
Ooh, I love that.
Then you sell it as a signed, used copy.
Yeah, doesn't even have to be sold as used. You just say, signed copy. If people can't tell that it was used, say, hey, this is a bonus. It's signed. That is great.
There's all sorts of repurposing that you can do, and we one time played a festival down in Texas, and we had a vinyl out on display. Texas Sun's a Brutal Sun, the record warped. And we kind of figured that it would, just because we have a black tablecloth, and we went into it assuming that it was going to be damaged. So at the end of it, we warped it into a bowl. Literally warped it into a bowl, and I sold it for $25, which was $5 more than I sold the vinyls for. So it wasn't because I was trying to cheat anybody out of money. It was because somebody saw that and thought it was cool. They liked our music, they liked our performance, and then they were like, hey, that's actually cool. I can stick potpourri in there and put it on my counter. It's art. And I wasn't going to do anything with that vinyl. And so I had fun with it, and I turned it into something of a little bit more value for somebody else. And that's really the point I think that both James and I are trying to hit home, is develop value for everyone else. If you are making people's lives better, you're doing that by creating value in their life.
Absolutely. And, before we touch on anything else, I want to add one more thing, which is offer free domestic shipping in both directions. Build it into the cost of your items. You can earn more when you do this, because if the shipping cost is built into the price of your items and somebody buys 3 or 4 items, guess what? You just got 3 or 4 times the shipping cost. But you're not going to be paying 3 or 4 times the shipping cost, because when you ship them together, the shipping cost goes down. Because let's say you have a standard size box and it costs you $7 to ship that box. Well, guess what? Now you put 2 shirts in that same box and it costs you $8 to ship it. But each item has $7 worth of shipping costs built into the price. You just got $14 for shipping and paid $8 for shipping. That's great. And it's not like you ripped off a fan, because they were just thinking about, hey, this is the price. They didn't think about the shipping cost at all. Whereas I don't know how many times I've gone to a band's merch store and put $30 of stuff in the cart because I have $30 to support the band. And then it's like, oh, $8.99 shipping. And I'm like, great, what do I take out now? My budget was $30. Just be upfront about the pricing. Say, free shipping. Problem solved. And if you're able to sell more items, that just looks better on paper, because you can say, we've sold 300 t-shirts in the last year. Whereas if you had made fans pay for shipping, maybe you would have sold 220 shirts in the last year. And what's going to look better to a prospective management company or prospective label? If you can say, hey, we sold 300 shirts, that's almost a shirt a day. That's amazing. So avoid those nasty surprises. And on that note, I also want to say, be very careful with who you pick for a shipping provider. Now, I'm a big fan of using USPS. People complain about them all the time, but they are over and over again the easiest company to deal with, because every town has a local post office. You can call up the local post office and talk to someone there. Your mail delivery person, if you are home when they're delivering, you probably know them. We've had the same driver for years. His name's Todd. He's great. He knows us. He goes above and beyond. Great guy. There have been other people who have filled in for him. They're not so great. But guess what? They're only delivering 1 day a week on his day off. He's here every other day, doing his best, and we love the service. I bring this up because right now, that guitar was supposed to be delivered on Friday. UPS, I paid them for a confirmed delivery time, which was, I think, between 1 and 3. During that time, the driver was 20 miles away, nowhere near us. And I was looking at the tracking all day, and UPS has this cool little feature where you can see it on a map. And finally, at 9:30 at night, he was about a mile from us. Just before 10, he was around the corner. And then all of a sudden comes up this thing, sorry, we can't deliver due to an emergency or severe weather. Well, there was no severe weather. And as far as I know, there was no emergency. I hope the guy didn't crash his truck or anything. That would suck. But my point is, if you're paying for a specific time, they should deliver during that time. I reached out to their customer service, and basically they said, tough luck, sorry, check the tracking. That's useless. FedEx, on the other hand, when I've had issues with them, their social media team has the local hub manager call, and you can talk directly to somebody with FedEx, just like with USPS. So, as much as this might sound like I'm bashing UPS, my point here is have good customer service. Let people talk to a human being rather than saying, oh, check the tracking. This is just another example of your customer service. Using a good shipping provider where you can get through to an actual person if something goes wrong is what you need to do. That is how you keep customers. So use USPS or FedEx because they will help you solve the problem, whereas UPS will say, sorry, we can't put you in touch with the local hub. Check the tracking. That's not good service. But for all of this, just bringing it back to the main point of the episode about risk reversal, letting your customers, your fans, get what they need from you. We're not saying you should let your customers walk all over you. Most of them won't. In fact, it's a very, very, very small percentage, a minuscule percentage of people who are going to take advantage of that. Feel free to cut people off with a return policy if there's a pattern. If they're trying to get a refund on every single item they ever buy, you know what? You can say, hey, we're sorry, we're going to have to revoke your return privileges for the next orders. If they still keep buying from you, knowing that they can't return anything, then it's probably not intentional and they just legitimately weren't happy. But by being generous, even though it might seem silly, your biggest fans are going to have more confidence in you. Your biggest fans are the people who will actually buy your merch. You don't want to lose a dedicated fan over a shirt that cost you $5 to print. If you make that fan angry, they will never support you again. Like when I didn't buy an Airborne Toxic Event hoodie again because they wouldn't swap the size for me. But if you make the fan happy, you will gain far more than $5 over the years because they will come back and buy again and again and again. That does it for this episode of the Band Hive podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. We really appreciate it. I would love to see all of your merch stores. Please head on over to the Band Hive Facebook group, either by searching for Band Hive on Facebook or putting this link into your browser, bandhive.rocks/group. Again, that is bandhive.rocks/group. If you put that into your browser, you'll automatically be sent to the Band Hive Facebook group. And then find the post for this episode, number 72, and drop a link to your merch store in the comments because I want to see what merch you have available and what kind of policies you have. And, you know, I mentioned a hoodie a couple times. It's been a while since I got a new hoodie. It's been like a year and a half. So I'm in the market for a new hoodie. So if I see a hoodie I like, I'm going to be buying. So please go drop your merch store links in our post for this episode within the Facebook group. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back with another new episode next Tuesday at 6 a.m. in your favorite podcasting app. Until then, have a great week, stay safe, and of course, as always, keep rocking.